business podcast. I have a new guest with me this week that I'm very excited to speak with. So thank you, Ntokozo, for being with me. I know you're a very busy lady, so it's great to get your time. As many might not know, Ntokozo works with me at Decusatio. So I know a little bit about her, but I would love for her to introduce herself in her own words. So Ntokozo, I know that you're an 80s baby. So growing up not only at the cusp of modern technology, but here at home in a changing country. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure, thanks, Emma, and thanks for inviting me. I mean, comparing to the other women that you've worked or you've interviewed, I think I'm a baby, really. But yeah, being an 80s baby, I don't have a complicated story, really. Grew up in a normal family with parents and the siblings and all of that. Most of my childhood was in KZN, so I was in between KZN and Joburg. I was actually born in Joburg, but went between Joburg and KZN. And growing up, going to school and so on, it was kind of the traditional South African story that you hear of everyone growing up in South Africa. Even at the times, just post-apartheid, all those changes that the country went through, obviously exciting times, being a young person in those times.
So yeah, looking back at your youth, what would you say shaped your career path the most? I know your first job was actually working at a printing company. So what's the story there?
The printing company, the story there is a mother trying to make sure that, her kid, as she's trying to find herself, doesn't lose herself. So it was really my mom trying to just make sure that I keep myself busy as I'm trying to figure out, which career path I really want to take. But I think, writing, storytelling, anything like that has really been a part of my life since, growing up, since I was a small kid. I remember my grandmother used to make me write poetry that I'd have to read at church. If there was like a Mother's Day or a Father's Day coming up, she'd be like, write us something, you write beautifully. So I think I'd always known that I want to go into somewhere where I'm able to express myself and get creative, even if it was something a little bit more serious, because I'm sure you can relate to parents saying, do something that will, help you take care of yourself when you're older, and that will bring in that money and bring in that income. So even if it's something that's a little bit more serious and requires, that little bit more professionalism, I've always wanted to go into something where I'm able to express myself, I'm able to use my words to deliver whatever it is that I'm trying to deliver. So I think that kind of built up growing up, really. And I think when I was in high school, funny enough, journalism wasn't brought up as the first thing in the family, but my parents encouraged me to go into a BCom entrepreneurship. And UJ, or the University of Johannesburg, which was at the time, Rao University, it was one of the first to offer anything to do with entrepreneurship. So I guess, the mix of what I did in high school, because then in high school I was involved with public speaking and drama and that kind of thing. And then getting into varsity and getting a taste of entrepreneurship and what it's all about, I guess that kind of helped to shape where it is that I'm trying to go in my career.
And all that led you to getting a job in the newsroom, right?
Yeah, so I got my first gig in the newsroom, I think it was in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. I was still, relatively young at that time, probably just before 21, if not at 21. And it was kind of accidental. I don't want to say it was accidental, but it was one of those where, I really took my chances on something. They were looking for an assistant producer. And, CNBC Africa, it had just come into the continent. So it was definitely exciting to be like, wow, let me give this opportunity a try. And it was after spending a year in the printing company where I was absolutely miserable, so I was excited for that challenge. I was excited for to just put myself out there and try something new. So CMPC Africa definitely taught me a lot. It gave me the real introduction into the workplace and the fast-paced nature of the newsroom. Being a producer, you think you'll come in here, your job is one thing, but you end up handling so much more than you expected. So I'm forever grateful for CNBC Africa and how it helped shape me and my career going forward.
So it sounds like it fell into your lap and then you made the most out of it.
And made the best of it, yeah.
Yes. And then I know after being in the newsroom for a couple of years, you then ventured into business. So what was that experience like, moving from the 9-to-5 environment to now managing yourself and your time?
I was kind of reflecting back a little bit on some of the changes that have happened over the years. And I think what has been a benefit is that I actually took it phase by phase. I didn't think of it that way as it was happening. But I think looking back now, I never completely went cold in the 9-to-5 or working in a corporate environment. And I never completely jumped into business either. So I think that kind of helped me to be able to keep that balance. And I think being in the space of media and dabbling in PR and business and, productions, you kind of see how everything fits into each other. So I think for me, it wasn't all that much difficult because I also have a supporting partner who also makes it a little bit easier, even when you do face those challenges. So I think, taking it phase by phase and not rushing yourself into something. So if you're going to want to go into business, maybe start it small, start it while you have the full-time job. Start it while you have something that keeps you going, and you slowly build into it and you slowly give yourself time to get into it. I think that's the best way, instead of going into the unknown, dark and blind, and, because there's a lot of changes that go into that. So I think I definitely wanted to avoid putting those issues on myself.
And you've definitely had a very interesting career thus far. So my question to you on that is, what are some of the biggest accomplishments or even failures, and what have you learned from them along the way?
Okay. Failures, there's been plenty, and I think there always are, failures, and we don't really call them failures. I prefer to call them learnings, because it's something that you tried to do and perhaps you didn't quite get the results you were hoping to get. But at the end of the day, you would have learned from it. So that's why I'd rather call it learnings. And I think there've been plenty of those, whether in the newsroom, whether in dealing with corporates. I think the biggest lesson for me is always around the issue of sales, that, once you get into business, you become a salesperson yourself. So that's, one of the biggest lessons for me. And I think one of the biggest achievements is what we do outside of Decusatio, obviously working with the small businesses and seeing those businesses grow. I also run a production company, a content production company with a partner of mine. And we not so long ago had a show on TV Mall, which is now on the home channel. And it was Designers Hour, showcasing local design, allowing them to be able to sell on the TV platform, but also digitally, and tell their African story. I think that was a huge success for me. And I think a huge success as well is being able to keep going and keep the family sane and alive, because even though, we're coming to the end of COVID, it's still affecting a lot of people. And, it's a lot to be able to even just get up. So I think that's a win for me. And from the learning side, it's everything, just learning how to do things better. myself and how to continue to develop myself. I'm trying to continuously to learn new things, and even the work that I do with the foundation, giving back to the communities around us, I've seen the growth there, and it kind of just keeps me going in being like, I can learn more and I can do more and I can achieve more. So yeah, you're always just learning, you're always experiencing something new.
Now moving over and finding ways to now synergize the journalism, the business development, the content strategy, and the public relations, as well as those business ventures that you mentioned, and also being a mom. All of that is no easy feat at all, to say the very least. So what words of advice do you have for other women in the industry juggling it all?
Is to be easy on themselves, and that it's okay to not always juggle it all. It's okay to let a few balls fall. There will always be someone who is actually ready and willing to pick it up. It's okay to take a step back. I feel like one of the biggest things we do on ourselves, especially as women, is thinking we have to do everything and do everything with perfection. If you overwhelm yourself and you burn out, then nothing's going to get done. So I think it's okay to play a little bit, to be easy on yourself, to be goofy, to be silly, to not always be serious, to not always be thinking about business. That's okay. And I think there is power in also, making the right networks, having the right kind of people around you. It goes a long way. So I think, people should really make an effort in building that. And also self-development is also an important thing.
That's great advice to share. And now I know you recently attended the 4th SA Investment Conference. So what was your biggest takeaways from that? And what sentiments do you have about the future of business in South Africa?
Yeah, I think, we've obviously been and dealing with small businesses for so long. We've been in a bit of a slump and confidence has been low, but definitely being at the conference, I definitely felt a sense of optimism. We obviously hope for more questions and more answers to come. You always hear that conferences end up just being talk shops where no results really come out. But we saw with the pledges that came from the conference, I think people are really optimistic about the economy and where the economy is going. So I think it's also up to us as the citizens to be like, let's focus on that and let's focus on the positive, and where can I then do my part to add on to this and to make it better and to run with it. So for me, it gave me a big sense of optimism, a big sense of there's a lot of work to be done, but there's also a lot of opportunities waiting out there to be grabbed. So it was very exciting for me. All the business guys and the government delegates that we saw there, I think they also seemed to have a renewed sense of we need to get some things done. So for me, it's just looking into the future. It tells me it's a good time to just keep pushing. It's a good time to, make those goals that I've had for myself happen. It's a good time to make those right networks and to really do my part to make a difference in the country's economy as well.
That's very encouraging to hear. And SMEs and entrepreneurs, yeah, wow, such powerful words. I mean, the slogan for this podcast is empowered women empower women, which is exactly what you're aiming for and kind of what you touched on and what you've said. You mentioned the Impilo Collection Foundation, which is an NGO that you do charity work for. So tell us a little bit more about that.
I think one of the things that we kind of spoke about at the top of the podcast is, trying to balance it all. And what we often do in this day and age is it's very easy for us to forget what we have and, not be appreciative of even ourselves, of how much work we've put into something, or if we've achieved a milestone, we're often very quick to move on to the next milestone. So for me, it just felt like there was something missing in my life where I felt like I wanted to be a little bit more of service, and not just be all about me. And that me, sometimes even when it's about family, you know, if it's just you always just consumed about you and your needs and the needs of your family. So Impilo Collection Foundation had, you know, been around for a couple of months before I joined it. It was started by a lady called Angela Young, and she makes bespoke jewelry. Her company is Impilo Collection. So, you know, it really started off small, and it was really testament to how each and every individual has that power to actually make a difference in their community. So it would just be us making that call to action to a couple of friends or people in our network to say, look, we're trying to collect food. It's COVID now, because we actually started off at the height of COVID in 2020. And we were like, you know, people are not working, people are starting to lose their jobs. Let's start with this little that we can do for even just the communities around us that perhaps do not have, you know, the privileges that we do have. So over the last 2 years, it's really grown beyond than we ever imagined. And it's been quite a challenge, because we've also kind of, you know, had to put on our big girl panties on and upskill ourselves to be able to run an NGO in an honest way, in a way that delivers to the community. So there was a lot of upskilling that had to happen. There's a lot of project management that had to happen and that we had to learn to be able to manage the needs that are out there. You know, how do you decide who deserves, you know, something more than another community? So that has definitely been a huge lesson for us as the foundation. And I am on the Exco team, so it means those decisions ultimately fall on us. But I think it's been something that just reminds you, you know, when you feel a little down or you feel a little bit like you're not doing enough, those kind of things remind you of how much you are kind of giving back to society and what a difference you could make. Because I think we all have those moments where even if we're giving of our best, we think it's not good enough. You want to give up, you want to, you know, just leave everything. So I think Impilo, you know, the foundation was one of those that kind of just reminds me that I'm human and I'm part of a bigger society, and I'm part of a bigger community. And that just helps to shape you as a woman, to keep you humble and to keep you remembering what's important, you know, just about life and what you're doing it for. Even to be in business, it's not about you to have money, but it's about you to actually be of service. You know, that's where the most successful businesses come from. It's businesses that actually service their communities or service the people. So yeah, that's, you know, when I think when you give back to the community, even when you have nothing, even when you have a little bit, giving back of your time, of your resources, it just helps to give that balance.
It's so important to remain balanced, and being successful, I think people often confuse it with just being like financially or career successful, but it's also got to do with your heart. And like you said, giving back, it makes you feel like you're part of the community and you're doing something good with your time, even if it's in a small way. So I definitely encourage people, or viewers, to go and check out the foundation, because you are doing amazing things with them. And that's very encouraging to hear. And then finally, just to end things off, I have a fun question for you. So if you could be an expert on any subject, what would it be and why?
Oh, it would be on ratchet reality TV shows. Because that is my go-to binge content. I feel like every once in a while you just need mindless content where you just scrambled up in bed with a packet of chips and you're not thinking about anything and there's nothing serious about life in that moment. So yeah, if there was anything that, you know, you could be a wretched reality TV expert, then I think I'd be up for the running.
I love it. Well, thank you so very much for your time. It's been amazing getting your insights and learning more about you. So yeah, thank you again.
Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you for having me. This was fun.